Okay, let's get rocking and rolling. If you leave your house tomorrow and go on a trip, right? No matter how fast you drive, no matter how safe you drive, you're never going to reach your destination if you don't actually determine your destination. I know that seems kind of makes sense, right? If you don't set your goals, how can you achieve your goals? How can you achieve anything? I mentioned this earlier in that book recommendation is that hope is not a strategy. A strategy is a strategy, right? Today's training is about helping you write your 2023 strategy in 30 minutes. 30 minutes of me training it and then you going to do it. I think you should be able to sit down in 30 minutes as well. If you've got a good understanding of what your company's doing, you can move it forward really fast. What I often see is people overcomplicating their strategic planning efforts, which leads to inaction, unclear metrics for both yourself, your team, and others throughout the company. And so today I'm going to teach you about how to simplify your strategy for success in 2023. I'll briefly cover a couple of different things, the difference between a revenue goal and a sales goal. And then I'm going to talk about the importance of core competency and strategic relationships as it relates to your strategy. I want to give you the 80% of strategic metrics in 20% of the time. So if that makes sense, do me a favor, put 80-20 into the chat or into the comments if you understand that 20% of your efforts can lead to 80% of your growth, right? There's this 80-20 rule, and you may have heard about it before, and I've talked about it before, but just understand this. Today, we're going to be focusing on getting you 80% of your 2023 strategy in 20% of the time. So put 80-20 in the chat. Let me know you're along for the ride, and we will get rocking and rolling. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonough. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my daily live federal sales training where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years as a small business owner, and since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. Last year, we did over 180 live trainings just like this one that were watched over 500,000 times. I'm live each weekday at noon Eastern, and I hope you join me. Otherwise, watch the replay when you can. Before we get started, do me a favor. Help buyers remember who you are. In the chat, in the comments, put your company name and put 2 or 3 words to describe your core competency. As we go forward, right, never feel like you can do that too much. You can never go into a chat like ours and put your company name and your core competency too often. You want to do it often enough that it begins to become second nature. It's solid in my memory about, oh, Hunter, Bayan, SharePoint, got it. I want to be able to do that for as many of you as I can, and I want you to be able to do it for each other. Also, consider growing your network through this community. Engage with the people in LinkedIn. You might be watching this on YouTube or Facebook or somewhere else, but I encourage you to come into LinkedIn where not only can you engage in the chat and the commenting, but you can actually connect with people. This is the professional network, right? The professional network platform. And so engage with others in this LinkedIn community and let people know that you're open to connections. So I'm going to move forward at a pretty fire hose pace. I want to get a lot of stuff covered, but this is designed to be able to line you up to look at your 2023 strategy and the top 5 things that I think I want you to be paying attention to as we go forward. So the 5 things I'm going to talk about, and then I'll come back and talk about them individually. First thing is revenue goal. Second thing is sales goal. Third thing are your core competencies. The fourth thing is prime agency. And the fifth thing, or your primary target agency. And the fifth thing is strategic relationships. Those 5 things, if you define them, you will have set a really good strategy for what you want to get done in 2023. That will be the big picture of what you're trying to get done, right? There's all this monthly, weekly, daily activity, but this is, hey, this year, this is what we're going to get done. So let me come back to revenue goals, right? I want to just make sure we're on the same page of what revenue goals is. And I'm not trying to be a CPA here. I'm just a business owner who talks money my way, in my pocket, in my bank, right? And so revenue to me is money recognized. I sent an invoice, I got paid, that's revenue. Anything else is just another name for it. And that's different from sales goal, which I'm going to come back to. And it's different from profit. I'm not really caring about that at the moment. But I want you to determine your revenue goal for 2023. How much money do you want to make at the end of 2023? What I prefer to do, and it's something you might consider doing, is focus on a term I use as run rate, right? Run rate is better than annual to me because an annual goal looks at 2023 and says, hey, how much am I going to make in 2023? $5 million or something. Well, now you got one goal for the entire time instead of a run rate where I say by the end of 2023, I want to be a $5 million company. And actually, if I say a $12 million company, it becomes easier. If I have an annual goal, then I have to make $12 million in 2023 revenue recognized, right, to hit that goal. But if I say a run rate, what it means is $12 million spread out over 12 months. If I am at the stage where I'm billing out and receiving revenue of $1 million a month, I am a $12 million company, right? A run rate of $12 million. Not trying to, again, be a CPA here. It's just real simple math. If I got $1 million coming in every month, I'm a $12 million a year company. And so I like setting that run rate because it makes it easier to go in. Go watch several other videos I've done on setting your strategy. When you set it like the way I did with a run rate, your team can stay motivated because they can see themselves working towards achieving that, and they never feel like they're going to miss it. Like if you set a $12 million annual goal, every month you haven't got any revenue, you're feeling horrible. But if you say, I want to be at a $12 million run rate by the end of the year, and what you're really talking about is $1 million by the end of December, well, then whatever you do is working up to get you to that $1 million. And so you could go all the way to the end of the year and still hit your goal. Your team could still stay highly motivated. So you know that an annual goal, what an annual goal is, right? I was equating this to somebody else. I was talking to them, and I said, an annual goal is just a New Year's resolution, right? When's the last time we kept our New Year's resolutions? A run rate's a different thing. A run rate is getting out there and making things happen, but an annual goal is just a New Year's resolution. Don't set New Year's resolutions. Just add good habits into your life and into your company. In this case, into your revenue side. So let's talk about which particular revenue goals I want you to set as we move forward. So there's 3 that I want you to keep in mind when you set a revenue goal. The first one is 2022. So it's not really a goal. I want you to write down how much money did you make in 2022? Not in chat, right? Just for yourself on your notes. Write down 2022, we made this much money. We're past 2022, so you know exactly how much you made, right? We brought this much money in. That's all you want to know. The second thing is 2023's goal. So I just said $12 million. Yours might be 100,000 because you're just getting started. Yours might be $1 million or $5 million. Whatever it is, say, what is our revenue goal? How much money do we want to be bringing it in? And don't be confused about that or confusing about it, because you and your team need to latch onto that goal. So if in 2022 you brought in $5 million, a realistic goal for 2023 could be $6 million, right? We expect to be able to keep the $5 million we already had continuing forward. So we want to get one more million added to that. And that's a 20% growth. 20% growth is great, right? You set whatever goal you feel comfortable with. But 20% is a really respectable growth. If you're growing steadily at a 20% growth, people will think you're a good company. So you're setting a 2023 goal. The next one you want to set, and this can be a little looser, right? 2023 should be pretty darn specific that I'm going to hit this number, but now do some out years. So do the next 3 or 4 years if you want to have a 5-year strategy or set of goals out for your revenue. But just say, like if you're 5 million in 2022, 6 for 2023, you might say 7.5 or 8 for 2024 and so on, right? So set those out years. It's not that hard. Write down 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. Write those down and then put a number next to each one of them, and you've just set your revenue goal, right? You should have some thinking behind it, but don't overanalyze it, right? There's this thing called paralysis by analysis, and that often happens when people are overly concerned about making sure it's 100% accurate. Who cares? It's just a goal. You're not like writing a contract to the government about something. That has to be exactly accurate. Your goals just have to be realistic. Your team needs to go, yeah, we can do that. Boom, get going. Just go make it happen. If you exceed your goals, great. I would be a little bit more conservative on your goals than stretching out. It's better to exceed your goals than to miss your goals, but put those things down. So if you understand that's the first one, put in revenue goal into the chat. Let me know you're tracking on that. So you got your revenue goal, you're looking out there. Next goal is sales goal. And I really look at these two as completely different, because revenue goal is money coming in the bank. But a sales goal is just award in the government space, right? It's contract awards. How many awards am I winning? Now I'm hitting my sales goal. I don't know when that revenue will be recognized, right? So in the federal government, my typical contracts, I would win multi-year, multi-million-dollar contracts. And so I might land a $25 million contract, but it's really $5 million a year. So some of that money is pushed out in the out year. That's why I like setting my revenue goals first, because when I have that and I've thought about that, then I look at my sales goals, and my sales goals need to align to those out years. It's really hard to land a sale this year that will be revenue recognized this year. I have done training before on how do you get revenue that'll come in this year? How do you go win contracts or subcontracts that are coming in this year? But really, in most of our professional services world, we're looking at the next year for the sale. So you work through this year doing capture, you write a contract or a proposal, and then you hope you get a contract awarded, and the contract begins in the fourth quarter or into 2024, right? So that's why you're looking at sales goals out there. I describe there's three paths to making money in the federal government. And these are the paths for sales goals. The first way is subcontracting under small businesses. The second way is prime contracting with agencies. And the third way is with subcontracting under larges, right? If you've heard my training before, I tell you, that's exactly the path to make money in the federal space. I'm not going to go into that at the moment, but I want you to set goals now for each one of those. So if you look at your revenue goals and you've got it out at, let's say 5 million, or 2023 is 6 million, then 7 million, then 8 million, then 9 million, et cetera, then you need to set your sales goals to be aligned to that. And so if you're looking at $6 million in 2020 or $7 million in 2024, let's say, then my sales goals for 2023 have got to be at least 7 million, but probably what it should be is 5 times 7 million. This is roll with me here for a second. But if I'm working in 2023 and I'm trying to work on winning contracts, sales in 2023, that'll bring me money in 2024. And the amount of money I want in 2024 is 7 million, then I need to have 5 times that, because most of my contracts are 5 years. There's a whole training I did that's a lot clearer on that. It's 30 minutes going into how do you line that up. But really, you're just looking out and saying, how much do I want? And actually, even that math I just did was a little off, because if I'm already a $5 million a year company, my revenue, my increase is only $1 million, right? This training today is not about knocking those numbers out. It's about telling you, set your goals for your sales goals for if you want to make $1 million or $5 million in sales, win $5 million in sales. Where is that coming from? This is the sales goal. How much of that money will come from prime contracting? How much of it will come from subcontracting with smalls? How much of it will come from subcontracting with larges? Does that make sense? For sales goals, set 3 goals. Subbing under smalls, how much money will you get? How much will come from primes, and how much will come from larges? So it might be realistic if you're already doing some business subcontracting and you're doing a little bit of prime, it might be realistic for you to set goals for all 3. If you're newer to the business, I would set all of your goals under subcontracting with smalls, and not worry about larges. Larges don't want to work with you until you've got experience in the federal space, right? That's the norm. And so if you're newer to the federal space and you're newer to building your company, make sure you set most of your goals around small business. So let me just restate that, because I know that's a pretty complicated topic that I'm trying to put into 2 or 3 minutes. The second goal for your sales or your strategy is sales goals. Sales goals should have how much money you're going to try to bring in for subbing under smalls, how much you're going to bring in from priming, and how much you're going to bring in from subbing with larges. These are not revenue recognized. These are just wins. So it doesn't even matter if you win this year and it comes in next year. That's fine. These are just your goals, but they align to your revenue goals. So hopefully that made sense. I'm going to keep breaking those down, but put into the chat sales goals if that made sense. If you have questions, right, if I can come back later and clarify this more, I can do a separate video, just post it and let people know it's out there. Let me know if you have questions as I'm going along talking about these different goals. And I'm going to move on to the third category for your strategy, or third section, right? So we talked about revenue goals. We talked about sales goals, which are put in the chat. The third one is your core competency. So in your strategy document, your strategic plan, you need to write down your core competency. I work with hundreds and hundreds of companies every single year, right? And so many of us struggle with saying, this is my core competency. I did a whole video talking about this, where we have FOMO, fear of missing out, that if I say I do this, then I won't do this. I talked with somebody, a customer the other day who's doing different technology, and they're also doing it in different markets, like the financial or the legal side or something. And what I suggested to them is they can narrow down the technical offering that they have, that core competency around that, and they don't have to worry about leaving out the financial areas that they want to support. I said that can just be the type of customer you're going after. But you're still, they do data, for example. You're still going after data, but now you're doing it for financial arms of an agency or legal arms of an agency. And so I want you to really think about a couple of things. First thing is determine for your strategic plan exactly what it is you sell. If you're not over $10 million, you should sell one thing, right? One thing. And I know that's a really tough thing for people, but the reason I say sell one thing, is because when you do, you get in the door. And when you get in the door, then you can sell everything. But if you stand here and say, I sell everything, then you're basically trying to say, I'm Amazon, come buy from me. But you're not Amazon, right? You're a boutique. You're niching down. And we say that the riches are in the niches, right? So when you niche down, when you focus on a core competency, it allows you so much more power and control over your success because you're able to become much better at that core competency. You're able to tell the stories and have marketing material around it. People will begin to know you as, I was talking with somebody the other day, said, you should get yourself known as the elevator company. Even though you do other construction stuff, just be known as the elevator company and people will begin to call you that. That's not a bad thing. You know, you might say, oh, I do painting, I do this other stuff. It doesn't matter. If you're the elevator company, you're being brought in the door. Once you're in the door and you prove you're a great elevator company, you can say, by the way, we also do this, that, and the other thing. Now you're a trusted vendor. So core competency, I want you to set that for your strategy. Focus, right? Determine a focus. And then the second thing that goes with that is I want you to determine what a slam dunk opportunity is. If you say that you do data analytics or something, well, what does a slam dunk opportunity look like? This is really important for your company to determine and to come together, you and your colleagues, to say, hey, what is a slam dunk opportunity for us? One that when we look at it, it looks like it was written right for me, right for you, right? And so when I look at this data opportunity, I go, that's not for us. I look at this one, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is exactly for us. Well, you need to determine that, right? If you've ever heard this idea of knowing your avatar, what's your customer look like? What's their age and their name and the things like that, right? That tends to be a more commercial side. But this way of knowing your avatar, your customer so well, well, you need to know what you do so well. That way, when you're looking in, Sam, or you're talking to teammates or you're talking to federal agency folks, you can communicate really easily. This is what our core competency is. This is what a slam dunk opportunity looks like. That way, you're not putting anything into your pipeline that is not going to be a pretty given win out there. So hopefully that makes sense. So number 3 here, core competency. I want you to make sure you focus on one single good core competency. And you can have a lot of threads below it, but cloud or data or elevators or SharePoint, right? Or interpretation that somebody did, right? And then you begin to explain what that is. But having that one good buzzword or a couple of words that are related all to each other, that's the focus on core competency. And then make sure you know your slam dunk opportunity. And because I like slam dunk, give me a second to drink water by writing slam dunk into the chat and let me know you're tracking on it. By the way, because there's so many of my friends in here, I don't know if you're seeing in the chat, Cecilia McDonald, that's my sister. She's been with me since the day we started the Hub Zone Chamber. So thank her someday. We always give Gus thanks, but she's also in there helping us make this happen. So thanks, Cis. Okay, so the next thing on your strategic plan is you want to determine your primary agency. Just like your core competency needs to be focused, you want to sit there and make sure you determine a primary agency. And when I say a primary agency, what I mean is for you to choose an agency that you say, we're going in there and we're going to know everything about them. It does not mean that you won't be able to do business with any other agency. What it means is there's no way you can learn everything about the Army's mission and all that kind of stuff and turn over to the EPA and try to be an expert on them and go over to CDC down in Atlanta and try to be an expert on them. You can't do that when you're a small business, right? You can only really do that when you have a dedicated business development or capture person going in. And so what I recommend for the most of you is pick your primary target agency that you're going to go in and research them, understand them, build relationships with all sorts of people, government people, industry people, getting in there. The next thing is strategic relationships, right? But you have to know which agency you're going after to then know which relationships to have. So that one's a pretty quick one. Figure out which one you can get into and do the best. If you already got work at CDC, HHS and CDC are your primary department or agency, right? If you're struggling on where it's at, just figure out what you're good at and pick one. If you don't have a TS clearance, don't bother with DOD yet. Go to the civilian agencies, right? If you're brand new, if you're an 8A firm or well, actually, if you're any of us small businesses, HHS is a really friendly one. DHS is a really friendly one. It doesn't matter what you pick. The problem most of us have is we pick too many, or we go here and we go here and we go here, but we don't take the time to just stop and begin to get to know people and help them get to know us. You've heard this probably 1,000 times that people buy from those they know, like, and trust. Give your customers and your teammates time to know, like, and trust you by engaging with one primary agency and building that relationship in there. So, okay, so that was number 4 is target agency, primary agency. And then let's move on to 5 really quick. And this one is strategic relationships. So I said in your strategic plan for 2023, if you want to do a quick plan that covers 80% of your strategy for the year, set your revenue goal, set your sales goal, determine your core competency, determine your primary agency, and now you're going to go after determining strategic relationships that you need. You may have heard this before, right? That success in government contracting is a relationship game. Well, I would tell you that life is a relationship game. If you want to get help getting your car tire changed on the side of the road, that's a relationship, right? Being nice, karma comes back to us, right? Life is a relationship game, but in particular, in the federal government space, in government contracting, you want to build strategic relationships. Strategic relationships are ones where you and the other party are both working towards each other's own success, right? You're committed to a win-win relationship. Whole separate training on that, on how to build them and how to identify them. But here are the ones you want to set up for your strategy document, right? When you're creating a strategy document, it only needs to be 1 page. It could be a couple of pages, but not a lot of pages. When you're looking at your strategic plan, you want to determine, your strategic plan, what strategic relationships do I want? And there are 3 types that you want. You want government related ones. So with agency, commands, offices, et cetera, you want to get in there and find relationships with them. You want to find relationships and develop strategic relationships with teaming partners. And the third one, for those of us who can fit into this world, I'm just calling it OEMs. I don't know if there's a better name for it, but if you're in the cloud services and you do AWS, then you want to build a relationship with Amazon. If you're in the elevator services, you want to build a relationship, strategic relationships with Otis or Hyundai elevators or whatever, right? You need to determine what manufacturers, people who make products that you use or your customers use, even if you're providing services, who's out there that you can build those relationships with. Those are great because they'll give you leads, they'll give you information, they'll give you content to share that gives visibility to your company. So OEMs are the perfect one. Let me break down really quick on government and teaming partners. When you look at those relationships, there's 3 roles you want to have filled and you want to identify, and they are called focuses of receptivity, focuses of dissatisfaction, and focuses of power. Receptivity are nice people who guide you around their company or the agency. Dissatisfaction is the program office, and power is the contracting office. Very simply, right? I've done a lot of training on that. You can go look at. But you want to determine how many relationships do you want at your particular primary target agency. How many and which companies do you want to build strategic relationships with? I was talking about 3 paths to making money: subbing small, priming, and subbing large. If I want to sub large, I might say, let me go after Leidos and CACI or CICI. And so I'm going to put them in my strategic document saying, I'm building a relationship with this company. And now I'm going to go out later and find the people that are going to be on there. But in the strategic plan, you want to get that information in there. So hopefully that made sense. If it did, put strategic relationships into the chat. Let me know you're tracking on that. Strategic relationships. So as a quick recap, the 5 things that you want to go forward and set into a strategic plan, like in the next week. You don't have to wait a long time. Hit a whiteboard like I do all the time, or blank piece of paper with your colleagues, but set a revenue goal, set a sales goal, determine your core competency, determine your primary target agency, and determine the strategic relationships that you want to put in place, right? So here's the tip for going forward. Something you can take as an action immediately is work with your colleagues and just set a revenue goal. These 5 things that I just said to you should be done in order, because without a revenue goal, why bother setting a sales goal, right? All of the things that are above are the destination. So if you think about determining relationships, those relationships are all leading basically to revenue. Otherwise, why are we in business? So set a revenue goal with your colleagues, and that'll give you guys the strength to be able to communicate to the company and plan out further as you go forward. So, hey, if you'd like to work with me or my team, we have a BD Accelerator workshop. I'd love to have you in. If you're a company at the right stage, it tends to be $1 million or more in revenue. You've got some traction. We're just going to take you to the next level. If you'd like to learn more, just reach out to me on LinkedIn. I can talk to you about it. And then last thing, remember, government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. Part of the process is putting your strategic plan in place. Part of it is coming back over and over and over again to training. So I hope I see you in the next one. Have a great day.